they need to remember that they have the ability within them to step up and then be more than what they thought they were, because they really, truly stepped up.
Whether it's, somebody who just, comes in and works in the kitchen and serves the kids food from 6 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon. These folks are honestly, I think of them as unsung heroes.
So if I were to ask you what the 3 top takeaways were from the new regulations, what would you say?
Well, it's good that you said 3, because there are 3 top takeaways.
So Administrator Long, can I call you Cindy?
You absolutely can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me here. There's a ton of stuff happening in the world of school nutrition, and USDA doing all sorts of new innovative things to support everybody in school nutrition. And we are here to chat all about that, and I cannot wait.
Looking forward to it.
So before we dive into all of that, this is actually our first time getting to chit chat, and I would love to know a little bit more about you before we dive into all the other things. So this is something I like to call street cred, right? So I want to know all the cool things that make you who you are that got you here today.
Oh wow, street cred. I don't think of myself that way. Well, let me talk a little bit about kind of how I ended up at FNS and doing this work, which I am super passionate about and very excited about. I grew up outside of Chicago. I was always really interested in politics and policy. I was one of those annoying kids that would go around telling people I'm going to be president someday, right? And so as I got, when I went to college and such, I studied political science and that sort of thing, and then came to Washington right after, and I was really interested in working for the government, and that's what I did. And through really just by luck, I found myself at the Food and Nutrition Service here at USDA. I had no background in nutrition whatsoever. I had previously worked on issues related to financial markets, but I had taken a little time out to have my first kid and was looking for a job, and I sort of had a friend of a friend say, hey, I work at this place. There's some positions open. I didn't even know USDA ran nutrition programs, right? So I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. I'll do it for a year or two, and I've been here for about 30 years.
So was it almost in a way culture shock getting into seeing the intricacies and the workings of the operations of food service?
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I really loved about this agency is that even though, day to day we're not in the schools serving food, but we're closer to the programs than some other government and policy jobs are, and from the beginning I did always have the opportunity to interact and have a sense of what we were doing really impacted the people that work in these programs and most importantly, the kids across the country who rely on these programs and enjoy them. Yeah,
definitely. I was obviously one of those kids that grew up within the programs. And it's funny, my previous position, two positions ago, actually, I actually used to work in the school district, right? So I was IT program manager for Pasco County Schools for food service. So I oversaw everything that happened technology-wise in food service for Pasco. Point of sale, servers, vending machines, digital signage, all the things, right? And I remember walking into my old high school for the very first time, not as a student, and going in the kitchen and having my mind just blown because I had no idea so much work went into making this healthy, nutritious meal that I was eating as a child. And it's way better now than it was back then, too. Yep. So they have even better equipment now. So it was almost like a shock for me just to see all the cool things that you guys help support schools to do for children across the country.
Yeah, I think the school nutrition professionals, whether they're somebody, who's in charge of a huge district or whether it's, somebody who just, comes in and works in the kitchen and serves the kids food from 6 a.m. to 2 in the afternoon. These folks are honestly, I think of them as unsung heroes. It actually, it just happens today is School Nutrition Heroes Day, right?
Yeah.
And it really is true. They are so dedicated. And, when you go into a school and go to into lunchroom, every time pretty much I see there's at least 1 or 2 people, and it's often ladies working on the lunch line, and they know these kids, and the kids smile at them, and they know their names, and they say, oh honey, we're serving your favorite today, or come back tomorrow, we have that chili you like, and it's just it's almost like a little bit of a parent vibe in the school.
Yeah. And it blows my mind that these people working in serving lines know all the kids by name. How do you memorize every child's name?
They're probably the only ones in the whole school that do that because they're exposed every single day to all these kids.
Yep. And a lot of times the smile from that person working the serving line may be one of the very few smiles or the only smile that child gets throughout the entire day.
Absolutely.
So there's just so much of school nutrition that's valuable for multiple reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So talk to me about the USDA. So give me a little bit of an intro to the USDA and its involvement with the school meals.
Well, USDA is a giant federal agency, right? And USDA does everything from manage our national forests to doing detailed research on, how to grow a better cotton plant to anything you can think of having to do with agriculture. And we are one of many agencies within the department. We're the Food and Nutrition Service. And our job is to operate at the national level all of the nutrition assistance programs that operate in this country. So there's 16. We sometimes debate: is there 16? Is there 15? Is there 17? But there's 16-ish. And the biggies that people know are the SNAP program that used to be food stamps, right? Yep. Which provides just baseline food support for folks who need some support. We operate the school meals programs that we're here to talk about today: lunch, breakfast. We also have after-school snacks. We have a fresh fruit and vegetables program. You can serve after-school suppers in some places. And then, of course, the other big one that people tend to know is the WIC program, which supports pregnant women, new moms, and their babies and young kids.
So why was the school meals program created?
Well, the school meals program has been around for a really long time in one form or another. It was created right after World War II, and it grew out of a recognition that it was something on the order of about half of the folks that were drafted or recruited into the military at that time couldn't serve because they were underweight or malnourished in some way. So the program was really meant to do that. And there was a tie to agriculture from the beginning because from the beginning, the program was supported directly by agricultural commodities. I think in the beginning it was a way to deal with surplus agricultural commodities, but it's been a part of that, a piece of the program from the very start.
And it is apparently having a really positive impact on the kids across the country.
Yeah, 30 million kids on any given day eat a school lunch, and a whole lot of them eat school breakfast. Hopefully that means we're doing something right.
That's so wild. So I deal a lot with people in the restaurant world also.
Yeah.
I've been blessed with that opportunity. And it's funny that they are very proud of what they do, as they should be, right? They do some amazing things, super innovative. But then talk about how many meals that they may serve in a given evening. And I'm like, you guys, that is not even close to what the school down the street serves daily. School districts serve way more meals, feed way more mouths than any restaurant, any community. And I don't think a lot of people understand that.
Right. And they do it usually in a span of 25, 35 minutes at best, right? They'll have hundreds of kids go through the line. It's extraordinary. I had the opportunity a month or so ago in Minnesota. We were celebrating School Breakfast Week, and so I was able to, along with some other folks that were visiting the school, to serve breakfast, right? And I think they had something on the order of 120, 150 kids that came through the line in about 15 minutes. And, it was a well-oiled machine. It was you do this and you hand out the fruit. But it was, honestly, I had sweat on my forehead when I was done, and it was 20 minutes. It's really something.
Yeah, it's hard work. I think I saw something on LinkedIn about you at that school. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. All right, so talk to me about the Healthy Meals Initiative. What is that all about? Well,
the Healthy Meals Initiative is the biggest investment, besides the basic program funding, that we've ever made at USDA in the school meals program. And it's all about recognizing and supporting school nutrition professionals, helping them share best practices, giving them, grants, especially targeting small and rural school districts, to do the things they need to do to implement all the great ideas they have in their program. And whether that's about buying new equipment, whether it's training their staff, whether it's bringing in a chef to work with them on menus. It's everything you can think of. People can do what they want with the funds. So it's about supporting the program in that way. And then another really important piece of it is about encouraging innovation in the what we call the school meals marketplace. As everyone listening to this podcast probably knows, as we came out of COVID, there were real challenges with the food supply chain, and it impacted everybody, right? Whether your household, whether you're a restaurant, but it really impacted schools. And so we really became aware that, wow, it's really important that schools have good, strong access to the range of foods they need to serve the nutritious meals that we require in the program. So we are going to be funding a whole bunch of projects across the country that are meant to bring together the school nutrition folks, ag producers, food producers, the people who distribute the food, the whole chain, and come up with innovative ways to make sure that they have plenty of places to get the kind of products that they need and they have a steady source for that.
So how would someone take advantage of that or apply for one of these grants that are going out?
Well, if you're a school district, we actually made the round of grants, but the great opportunity that still exists is to be part of the recognition program. What we under the Healthy Meals Incentives banner, we have 6 different kinds of awards. Sorry, I think it's 8 now. It might be 8 that we're recognizing folks for. So what we really want to do is to have school districts apply for these and get recognized for what they're doing, have the opportunity to share with their peers, and from their perspective, this is probably the best thing. We're going to be having 2 summits where we bring together all the awardees so they can, share ideas and learn from each other. And we are covering the expense of them coming together. The first one is in Las Vegas in the fall. Yeah, in the fall. And we really want folks to step up and take advantage of these.
That sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's funny, you mentioned the pandemic earlier and how FNS, food service operators, stepped up. And they were truly unsung heroes through that entire time. And they do not get the recognition that they deserve, right? Not at all. So to see you guys honoring them for the things that they do every day is amazing. Absolutely love that. I love awards. I know it's not a competition, but they're trying to serve. Like,
right.
That's what they're competing against, is how can I serve more students better food, and to recognize them for that, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned COVID because I just say this over and over wherever I go to talk about school meals. If you think back to those early months, right, and how scared everybody was, and how little information there was about what was happening and how you catch this horrible disease, and remember that we had that like day to day, like this was closing, that was closing, and it felt like the world was really condensing, and schools shut down, and within a matter of days, these school nutrition professionals were back on the job, figuring out, because they realized, oh my goodness, school's closed. We have 30 million kids around the country that all of a sudden the place where they got their lunch every day and their breakfast for many of them,
maybe their only meal,
isn't there. Yeah. And so they figured it out. I mean, they packed meals in bags and had distribution sites. It was remarkable. And I know folks remember that, but I'd like to sort of remind everybody, let's not forget it. Like, they came in when people were scared of being in groups, and they did it because they knew how important it was.
Yeah, I really don't like talking about COVID at all. Like, I want to just like put that out of my mind and just move on, as I feel like we should. But like you said, like, they need to remember that they have the ability within them to step up and then be more than what they thought they were, because they really, truly stepped up. I mean, I spoke to districts that were so innovative, they reached out to companies like Amazon to have meals delivered to families. Yeah. Which is crazy. Like, there's no quit, no give up, and they deserve a ton of respect. So thank you for honoring them.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned that you went to a school district not too long ago, and I'm sure you go to quite a few throughout the country. What's something that's really innovative that you've seen a district serve throughout the day? Because I feel like a lot of people don't understand the quality of the foods that are available. But I can say from personal experience, I've eaten at districts one day, and it was better than my meal the night before at the restaurant I was at.
Yeah, I can say the same. Well, a couple things. When I'm thinking, I went to a school district that I'm not going to name because everyone will be jealous. But they were serving ceviche. Yeah. They were serving these incredible udon noodle dishes. I mean, it was really the kind of thing that you would go to a restaurant, and like if it was like an entree sized item, it would be $25. Yeah. Right. And that's just the entree, because they were also serving, a vegetable and fruit with it and a carton of milk. So they're super innovative around the menus. Right. I've also seen some really, just fun innovation about how folks are like engaging the kids. Like they'll do, recipe contests where like a kid, and it's the most fun when it's kind of the littler kids.
Yeah.
Like they pair with like maybe a teacher or somebody on the nutrition staff to come up with a recipe idea, and then they'll work to do it, and they'll have like a little contest and a tasting. And it shows you that like kids can get really engaged around food if you put the effort into it and do it in a way that speaks to them. Because I mean, people say something. Well, kids aren't going to eat this or they're not going to eat that. I just don't buy it. With the right preparation and with the right engagement, kids want to eat like delicious and different and interesting things.
Yeah, and they especially want to eat it if they help grow it.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to give St. Vrain a shout out because I'm going to give them credit where it's due. But they actually have an amazing farm to school program. And they actually raise their own cattle and livestock, and then they work with the butcher and they slaughter it, and that lamb is on the menu. Like, it's crazy what they're doing out there.
Okay,
it's
you
awesome.
win, because I have seen places that have their own chickens, that do goats for the milk and the cheese. I have never seen cattle, so that's
my
pretty
first
cool.
time ever seeing it. It blew my mind, so I can't wait to put that story together for everybody to see. And I only say their district name because I want people to know that type of stuff is possible, and school districts and directors, they love to share. They're not competing against each other, right? Like their customers are their students, and there's no competition. So like they network and they share all the time, and that's why I'm throwing that out there for people.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you mentioned that, because another thing that's been just huge in terms of innovation has been, what we think of as kind of farm to school, which can mean a lot of different things. I mean, it can mean raising your own cattle or your own chickens, but it can also mean having school gardens, right?
Yeah.
And in I've seen some. I know of some districts that have like these amazing gardens that actually can produce enough that they can serve, incorporated as part of the meal, and that's wonderful. There are others that are there. They don't really have that capacity, but they teach kids about the food, and like maybe if the kids are growing, if they're pulling carrots, or maybe they're pulling like the purple carrots or something unusual, they'll get that on the menu, even though it's maybe not the ones they grew. And there's just tons of ways, and it's also something that really engages the broader community. I know it's something that gets a lot of parents engaged, and of course local producers love to have connections with schools, because schools are a great, once you get to know them and understand how to work with them, they're a great customer. Schools are always there. They're always going to be serving kids. It's not, subject to the whims of the economy or anything like that. And that's actually been one of the most energizing things that I've seen in school meals in the last 15 years.
Yeah. So speaking as an adult, like I never really had much experience working on farms. Like I didn't do agriculture in elementary, middle, and high school. I didn't respect the food as much as I should have, or the people that are putting in the work to provide all this food for all the people across the country. But I was in Minneapolis back in October, went to one of my friend's farms, and they do like regenerative ag, and they have cattle and they have crops, and everything works together. And my wife went there and spent a day with them, and we got to eat the food off of the farm, and it was amazing. And just being around all the foods, I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to be a farmer. And I'm the guy that hates getting my hands dirty.
Yeah. Some of the things that you eat, like fresh picked, it tastes like a different food sometimes than what you get in a grocery store.
Yeah, especially tomatoes. So I was
I'm with you there.
Yeah, I was in Wisconsin, and I forgot the name of the nonprofit there, but we were walking through. I was getting a tour, and he was like, "Hey, try this tomato." So I picked the tomato and I ate it, and I'm like, "Was that a tomato or is that a grape?" And he was like, "That's a tomato." And I could not stop eating these things.
Yeah.
They were delicious.
Fresh picked cherry tomatoes.
My God.
I'm trying
tomatoes.
to grow them. I tried to grow them over the winter in those, those little hydroponic things you
Yeah,
can get.
yeah.
I got about a dozen. Boy, they were so good. They were so good.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I do not have a green thumb at all. I can grow peppers, and that's it. That's all I got. So you mentioned that you guys are putting together some networking opportunities for districts at your events, say the Las Vegas one. Why is networking important for you guys to encourage?
Well, I would say a couple of reasons, and we actually just had an event that was focused on the folks that got those grants that I mentioned, the small and rural districts, about a month or so ago. And it was the energy in that room. We had about, probably 250 or so school nutrition professionals from about 150 districts. We actually made awards to 264 small and rural school districts, and roughly half of them were able to make it. Hopefully some of the others will be able to come to the next one. But anyway, it served so many purposes. There was a lot of, education and idea sharing. and networking and people like trading information and like I'm going to call you, a lot of that. There was also just a lot of like celebration and recognizing the great work that they were all collectively doing. And I think I like to think it felt important to them that not only did USDA support them with a grant, but supported them with this opportunity to come together and be recognized. And then lastly, there were a number of like partner organizations there. Like there's lots of like nonprofits out there that help support folks that want to do farm to school related kind of things. There are organizations that are there to help folks think about their menus and recipes. And so they were able to be exposed to all of those folks and have some one-on-one time with them. And the other thing that was super fun is there was a booth there for all of these grantee districts if they wanted to go in and tell their story. And so we're going to be I think it's under development, have a nice little video product of these like incredibly unsung heroes telling the story of what they've done in their school district.
That's neat. So what was the theme of that event that was out west? Is that the team up that you're talking about?
No, it was the HMI the celebration. Yeah, it was the first, like I said, it's the first one, and it was focused on bringing together those grantees that all received awards. I think it was the end of last summer.
Oh, cool.
So it was an opportunity for them to check in, talk about how it's going, and as I said, just to really celebrate and support them.
That's awesome. So what's your relationship been like with industry members out there, the manufacturers?
Well, one of the things that I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about is we have been working in the Biden-Harris administration to update school nutrition standards. And, we really just do see that as building on the great work that's been done over the last 10 or 15 years to, as you said, really dramatically change what school meals look like. And one of the things that we knew was going to be really important is that industry be there to supply those products, because we're looking for schools to, reduce added sugar. We're looking for schools to gradually reduce sodium, and they need the support of industry. So we knew early on it was important for us to hear from industry, to talk to them about what's it going to take, what's the time frame, what are your concerns, and it was tremendously beneficial to do that. Because we learned a lot. I think it helped our industry folks understand what we were trying to do and not just be like, oh my God, this is the government coming down with more rules that's going to make our lives difficult. And I feel like we have a really good cadre of folks who are active in selling to this market that understand what we're doing and are going to do their very best to work to support schools to get there.
I kind of feel it's almost been like a temperature change a little bit, because I remember when the proposed rule came out not too long ago, we were all at LAC, everyone's freaking out like, oh my gosh, they're crushing us, like what are you going to do? And I've spoken to some friends recently that are industry members, and they're like, it was hard, but we did it, and we did it for a good reason, and we figured it out, right? Yeah.
And I think that was a really good, it just shows you how important it is to communicate across sectors, right? Because, from our perspective, it's like, well, we're not going to not do anything, right?
Yeah.
We need to reduce sodium. But from their perspective, it's just like, you can't just throw out a number and say, do it, And so, having the conversation again about the time frame and where's current technology, what's feasible, what's not. I think it really helped us get to kind of the right place, and we're taking this gradual path over several years, and I'm really hopeful that we are set up for success.
Yeah, I love the fact that you guys listen to the people. I was reading through a 20-page report yesterday in the airplane coming over here, and I saw that, all about school nutrition. It was great. And I saw that you guys took in over 130,000 comments or something.
136.
136?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
It is crazy.
So I kind of feel bad for the person that had to sit there and read all those comments.
Well, we have this whole elaborate system. So we love it. We love it when we get like a lot of comments, because we need to know. We need to know how people feel about things, and they provide such valuable information.
Yeah, it's funny. The more and more I sit here and talk to you and just think about like my experience with school meals and USDA and all that, like I feel like you guys truly do like almost add fuel to the fire to make things better, whether it's a school district, a food service operation, or it's industry, because we all have to partner and work together to move forward. But as industry and operator, like we need some more help. That's kind of where you guys come in and just dump some fuel on there. And
Well,
Yeah.
I really appreciate that because over the years, I think I've been accused of adding fuel to a fire in different ways. But you know, what you said is exactly what we have been. That's how we think about it. You know, we understand that our job is not just to write a rule and in isolation, publish it and walk away. Right. Our job is to develop a rule that is thoughtful and reflects the reality of the world and a lot of input, and then be there to provide the support, whatever kind of support we can to help, you know, fundamentally school nutrition professionals, but other folks that are part of the process, whether it's industry, whether it's the state agencies, whether it's community groups that support schools, to do what we can to support them in their work in reaching the goal that we all share.
Yeah. So do you have, or have you heard from any industry members as far as like how they're meeting the new guidelines, like what they're doing to actually accomplish the mission?
Well, you know, we have, and I was really pleased that a number of industry representatives actually made positive statements about where we landed on certain aspects of the rule. And one thing that was just so much fun last week is we had kind of a celebratory event about the rollout of the rule in Detroit that included our wonderful Secretary Tom Vilsack, who's a huge champion of school meals, Senator Stabenow, and the second gentleman. And we were at Lincoln Middle School in Detroit, and it was really fun. But one thing that made it really unique is we had a taste test of the kinds of products that were going to support these, you know, healthy school meals. So we had 4 different industry partners, ranging, you know, from a big, you know, international retailer to companies that were a lot more focused on, you know, serving the school meals market. And they served, one of them, for example, served a breakfast muffin, and apparently they have about a dozen different flavors. This one was banana, but it had sweet potato in it.
Yep.
So it was super tasty, but apparently allows them not only to have less fat, but to have less sugar. And so exactly what we're looking for them to do.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and then we had a dairy there that specializes in cheese, and they did this great little taste test, and they did this at the School Nutrition Food Conference last year.
Yeah.
They had the traditional, I think it was it was American cheese. They had a 30% reduced sodium and a 50%, and they had everybody, including about half a dozen kids, do a little taste test, and you know, it was all over the board. People couldn't necessarily tell, and then they had some, you know, like some products that, like, it's one thing to taste something by itself, but when you have it in a product, you know, so it was really just sending the message of, we're with you, we're going to develop the products you need, and it can be done.
It can be done. It's possible. Yeah, that's cool. So you mentioned milk, and I know the rulings kind of touch on milk a bit. You want to, so I guess I'm going to throw it out there. So flavored milk is still allowed, correct? What are the rules around that?
Yeah, so flavored milk is allowed for all grades. And, you know, without getting too deep into it, I think that, you know, fundamentally there are, you know, just some, you know, really compelling arguments that it's important for kids to get milk. It's a, you know, really nutrient dense beverage, and it's important that we maintain it in the school meals program. The thing that's really new, though, is that we are, for the first time, you know, across the board, have some structure in place to reduce added sugar in school meals. And one of the things that we've done is to set limits on the amount of sugars that can be in particular products. Okay. And one of those products is milk. So we included a standard for, like, you can only have, I think it's 10 grams of sugar in one of those little milk cartons. Yeah. And the great thing is that the representatives of the dairy industry, gosh, it was probably close to a year ago now. It was after the proposed rule came out. They banded together, and milk processors that cover like 90% of the school meals market said, we're going to meet this 10% standard. And I've already seen products that meet it. So that was, you know, I think that was a really great outcome and a really good example of, you know, number of folks stepping up to the table to do what was necessary to move forward.
Yeah. So I'm kind of put you in the spot here. But not really, because
I'm never on the spot.
I'm sure you're on the spot a lot. You're just used to it. So I was doing some research, prepping for this interview, and I noticed that I couldn't find like the 1-2 punch as far as like what the new standards were, like in terms of video, because I don't love to read. I will read, but I want to watch a video, right? So if I were to ask you what like the 3 top takeaways were from the new regulations, what would you say?
Well, it's good that you said 3, because there are 3 top takeaways. One is that all the changes are gradual.
Okay.
So nothing changes next school year.
We have
Let
to
me
look.
say that again. Nothing changes next school year.
Okay.
Okay. And the changes start the following year, the school year that starts in the fall of 25 and goes into 26. That's point number one. Point number two is, and I've mentioned this already, we are, for the first time, putting standards in that deal with added sugar. And that is, and that's based on, the dietary guidelines say you shouldn't have more than 10% of your calories from added sugar. And, school lunches are in a pretty good place. They're right around the standard. School breakfasts, it's a challenge. They're quite a bit above that. And it's frankly something we've heard about from parents and teachers for quite a while, because think about it. If you have kids, you don't necessarily want them like getting all sugared up at 7 a.m. And then like collapsing at 10:15. So it's time to do that. And then number three is that sodium is an area where we still need to make progress. Let me sort of do a sidebar. If you step back, we made some big changes in school meals during the Obama administration, right? The plate is much more focused on fruits and vegetables, on whole grains, on low-fat dairy. That was really like almost like a top-to-bottom redo of school meals. One of the things that we started tackling then was sodium, but we've struggled to make a lot of progress. There was some progress made. So we really wanted to pick up that cause again and start on a road towards, again, gradually reducing sodium. So the rule does include some standards that require some further reduction in sodium, over the course of a number of years. I think I don't have my little cheat sheet in front of me. I think it's about 3.5 years from now.
Okay.
We would need to take another reduction in sodium.
It's funny because people like to like savory foods, right? They like salty food, especially me. Like I'm Jamaican. Like we put salt in everything, right? Like I used to grow up eating or drinking all sorts of juices with added sugars in it and stuff that's not good for you, right? And the minute I stopped, I lost a ton of weight from not drinking juice all the time, which is horrible for me. And then now I can't even go back and drink those same juices because I hate how sugary it is, how sweet it is, right? And I feel like by starting with children at a young age, we can help train their palates or accustom their palates to eating healthy, nutritious foods rather than always wanting something that's full of fat and sodium and sugar and all that stuff. So
yeah, it's just common sense, right? I mean, kids learn how to eat. It's not programmed in, and so what they're exposed to at a young age makes a real difference. And I've been hearing for years about, especially the young kids, right? Mm-hmm. That like they'll have something in school and then go home and ask their parents if they can, get it in the grocery store. Or, I actually was talking to a high school kid once who said that their nutrition director, God love her, was making kale chips and serving them. And he said, I loved him so much. I got my mom to buy a hot air fryer, and I make them for myself almost every day after school.
That's awesome.
So it makes a difference. And I'm guessing that a lot of those habits are going to carry with them through life. That's the goal.
Yeah, and on the flip side, my mom's probably going to hate me for saying that because she's a registered dietitian, but her grandchildren do not eat healthy at home. Like it's junk food all the time, and I feel bad for saying it, but I'm just keeping it real. And I'm sure it's like a lot of people across the country, like when parents are at home, they don't have time to create these meals that their kids really should be eating. So it's at least nice to know that when my kids go to school, I know they're getting quality.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's see. As far as, what's something that you're looking forward to in the future? Like what does the next, say, 3 to 5 years look like in your mind? If you could have anything in terms of school meals, what would that be?
Well, I'm going to go a little tiny bit broader than school meals because, and this is something that's starting now. So one thing that's really, really exciting is that we have like some amazing new tools to help to do a better job at feeding kids during the summer. I think, those of us that work in field and frankly, folks that work in schools, they know that kids are at higher risk for hunger, and the research supports them on that during the summer because school is out. And again, it's like when we were talking about COVID, if that's where they're used to getting a couple meals a day, that's an issue. And not all families have the resources to just easily fill in the gap. And we have had a program through USDA for a long time that that does provide feeding support for feeding kids in the summer, but it's built around the idea of kids coming together, right? So if a school has summer school or some kind of rec program, it works great, and it's going to continue to work great. But we've only ever been successful in reaching about 1 in 6 of the kids who, relied on school meals during the school year. And that's because, it's just, it doesn't work for everybody to have your kids like in this one place, to get meals. So Congress recently did 2 things. They said, okay, kids don't have to come together in rural areas, because that's an area that was always someplace that was really hard to do that. So now schools and other providers can do things like parent pickup for like a week's worth of meals. They can even deliver meals to kids' houses or to different pickup spots around the community. And we're really excited about that. It started last summer, and I know it's going to grow this summer. But the other thing that's really is exciting is we now have a summer EBT program where every family that has a child who gets a free or reduced price meal will get a card that has grocery benefits on it that they can use. And it's $120 this summer per child. So it's really going to help provide a good baseline for those families to be able to fill in the gap, and so that summer won't be a time where kids are as at risk for school meals. And I think that's, and that came to mind because you asked the next 3 to 5 years, and it's starting now, but I think in 3 to 5 years, we're going to be talking about what an incredible success it was, and we'll have the experience and we'll have the data to show that, yeah, this made a huge difference in reducing what we've been calling that summer hunger gap. And hopefully it'll go away.
And I love the fact that I'm going to assume that you guys are making some of these changes and putting an effort there because you've heard a lot from people, out in the community saying, hey, we can't always go to, say, this community center to pick up food. And I know for a while that was a problem, but it's just cool to hear you guys actually opening up and be like, okay, we hear you guys, and now we're going to fix it. So here's your solution.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, and it's one of the, I don't even want to say silver linings, but it was one of the things we learned during COVID. Because during COVID, Congress did give us a lot of flexibility about how these programs look. Because usually, the law has a lot of, parameters around what we can and can't do. But we were able to do these grab-and-go meals in the summer and during the school year even. We were able to provide families with cards. And although the program isn't identical, it showed that it could be done. And so it was great that on a bipartisan basis, which is not that common these days, right? Yeah. Congress saw that these things had some real benefit during COVID. I think they heard from a lot of families how beneficial these things were, because we've known for a long time that program where kids come together is great where it works, but it doesn't work everywhere.
Well, it's as much as school food service operations are evolving, it sounds like you guys are evolving too to provide everybody with the support that they need. And I want to say thank you to the USDA for that. And thank you for your time. It's been really cool sitting down and chatting with you. I hope it's not the last time. But it's an honor, and I love seeing what you guys are doing for school meals out there, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, that's really kind of you, Marlon, and thank you for what you're doing to get the word out about how fabulous school meals are. I know from personal experience, both from your as a child and as somebody who worked in schools. So it's great to have a partner like you.
All right, I love it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.